There's some big news to go over today as the Pittsburgh Steelers have made multiple shocking moves. And ahead of the crucial game on Sunday against the Bears, Omar has made a very interesting signing. But not only that, there was a move made by Mike Tomlin that has fans absolutely livid. You're going to want to stay tuned until the end of the video for that, as well as a few other injury updates on this episode. A ton to go over today, folks. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to go over today, and obviously a crucial game this upcoming Sunday. Every game at this point is crucial as the division lead is very, very small at this point, as the Steelers maintain first place in the division ahead of the Ravens. But with a game coming up in a couple weeks, or a few weeks rather, against the Ravens, of course, the Bears Sunday, the Steelers have decided to make a few moves. Now, we're going to start with the less impactful move, then we'll dive into a wild update that Mike Tomlin dropped. But again, each move kind of matters. We saw some special teams guys play last week when they were signed for the practice squad, so you never really know. But the Steelers have officially signed wide receiver John Plumbley to the practice squad and have released Jack Henderson. Now, if you've been following the channel for a while, I've covered John Plumbley a couple of times, and if you're unfamiliar with him, he also played quarterback in college. He was kind of a dual threat, but now he's solidifying himself as a wide receiver primarily. But you can see here, he originally signed with the Steelers as an undrafted free agent in the 2024 draft. Spent a little bit of time with the Seahawks and the Jaguars. Played college football as a quarterback, completed 464 of 760 passes, was actually pretty decent. And then, of course, in 2023, he was also a quarterback there. Played a little bit of wide receiver as well, 300 yards. But he has since transitioned to a wide receiver in the NFL. And a fan favorite for a little bit there, especially when, he was signed following being undrafted. But they're bringing him back, and it seems like they love juggling between John Plumbley being on the practice squad, being off the practice squad. And at this point, each move kind of matters, right? And whether that be through injuries, which the Steelers have been plagued with all year, whether that be through just different levels of, whether it be the offense, the defense, every practice squad signing, guys get elevated from the practice squad. We saw it last week. A ton of players got elevated. They played really well in the absence of some of their guys. So each of these are important to cover, and each of them matter a little bit in their own different ways. So let me know down below if you have a favorite memory of John Plumbley, or if you just think he's a random. But speaking of moves here, now we'll cover a couple other injury updates, but this is the biggest move that came out recently. And you can see here, Mike Tomlin officially confirms that Darius Slay this Sunday will step back in if he is healthy, and James Pierre deserves time, but Slay will step back in when healthy. And you can see here from Kevin Adams saying it's brain dead. They love to play their contracts, not the best player available. That's why the Steelers are stuck. This guy refuses to evolve. And I mentioned it in yesterday's video. I foreshadowed this video a little bit where Mike Tomlin, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but he never ultimately will bench a player because of an injury. And Darius Slay has gotten injured, it seems, in every single game, whether that be his hand, whether that be lower body injuries, upper body injuries. And I thought that Darius Slay was going to be out for a while, but it seems like, and we'll dive into the injury updates in a bit, it seems like he's going to be available for the game on Sunday, which is actually unfortunate now because James Pierre looked really, really good. He was going up against T. Higgins, going up against, of course, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in last week's matchup, and their secondary played really well. Jalen Hurts, Kyle Duggar, and, of course, cornerback position, James Pierre and Joey Porter Jr., they looked really, really good. And this has fans livid for the simple fact that James Pierre had looked really good in the week before last week, so week 10 when he stepped in for Darius Slay when he was hurt. And then, of course, he got a full game to prove himself, a bunch of fantastic plays. And they will continue to, quote, use Pierre as well. But the problem now is, I think at this point, Darius Slay, he's had a horrible year, of course, and he's aging. He's getting up there in mid-30s. But James Pierre just looked like the better option. And you can see here, people are starting to get a little bit upset. I just can't see how you bench James Pierre for Darius Slay. And that's exactly what they're doing because Mike Tomlin is not evolving. And he's sticking to his motto of, if a guy gets injured, we're not going to bench him because of that. Which I understand to a degree, but it's the point now where if you're Mike Tomlin, you look at it from the stats. I'm sure the advanced analytics favor James Pierre in his brief runs over Darius Slay as well. They're clearly trusting their veterans. And Darius Slay, coming from the Eagles in the offseason, he was a very good cornerback, but at this point, he's very injury prone. He hasn't had a healthy season. He's in his mid-30s. He's at 35 years old now. So it's at a point where you look at it from that perspective, it's probably not the best decision. And even it's not like James Pierre's been playing bad. He's been playing really, really good. So I don't know. It's a pretty shocking one, quite frankly. And you can see this here as well. I know it's a little bit small, but I'll read it out for you. in the game, Jamar Chase was held to just 3 receptions on 10 targets. Sunday, it was the first game in his NFL career that he was targeted 10 plus times and didn't have at least 6 receptions. And that goes to show how good Joey Porter Jr. did, but just everybody in general. And you can see this here from Jonathan. The Asante Samuel Jr. edition was cool and all, but I don't know how you take James Pierre off the field until he gives you a reason to. The guy's playing out of his mind. And of course, everybody, Joey Porter Jr., James Pierre, Kyle Duggar, every single player who participated on the defensive side of the ball against the Bengals did their job. And you can say whatever you want about the Bengals. They were one of the hottest offenses, averaging over 40 points a game, or 30 points a game rather, since Joe Flacco took over from Jake Browning. And they shut him down completely. But they also signed Asante Samuel Jr., who I'm sure was promised some sort of reps at the NFL level. Now, he's not there yet, but if you're going to start Darius Slay over him, not over Asante Samuel, but of course over James Pierre, I mean, there's a point. I think it's at the point now where it's a little bit ridiculous, and fans are not happy with Mike Tomlin, which, let's be honest, it isn't the first time fans aren't happy with Mike Tomlin, so I'm sure it'll be an interesting thing to watch. But if Darius Slay goes out there on Sunday and has a bad game, and they somehow lose the game, hopefully they don't, hopefully they improve to 7-4, you'll be looking, okay, we could have used James Pierre the whole time, but ultimately they didn't get it done. But we'll see what happens Sunday. Maybe Darius Slay will turn back the clock a little bit. And speaking of injuries here, let's go through them. So Alex Highsmith is expected to be limited, but remains in consideration to play. He was obviously coming off of an extremely good, week 9 and 10, and then of course getting injured and missing last game. Very unfortunate, but at the same time, Nick Herbig has been very, very good. He looked really solid in his game on Sunday. It wasn't his best game, but he played really, really well, made an impact. Sean Williams in concussion protocol, and then Darius Slay, of course, with his concussion, is out of protocol officially, which is why he's expected to play. And then from Jaylen Warren, he's optimistic. He said himself that he could have returned into the game last week. He's optimistic to play. And then Cole Holcomb is also expected to be limited early in the week. So it seems like they're going to get more healthy. Isaac Samalo, of course, played last week, which helped with their jumbo sets with the 3 tight ends, which they didn't use a ton, but ultimately they got it done. And then you can see there, Tomlin also said that he and Rodgers spoke and that Rodgers expressed his desire to play. So it sounds like the plan will be we'll practice the first team, or practice with the first team on Wednesday, and then with Rodgers day by day. So we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. Had a video on it yesterday, between him and Mason Rudolph. There's no surgery. There is a small fracture, I believe, but there's no surgery needed. So a lot of question marks going in. The good news is Jaylen Warren's going to be coming back, and Gainwell's coming off of his best game in what feels like years with 2 receiving touchdowns, which is something that we haven't seen from him all season long and really in years. One final thing as well before I wrap up here. I covered this in yesterday's video, but keep an eye out for Roman Wilson in the game Sunday, because he did take over. He had double the snap count that Calvin Austin did. He only had 1 reception for 17 yards. It was a very good route, though, and it was a 17-yard reception. But I'm excited to see what Roman Wilson can do, especially because they didn't go out. They didn't get any more wide receivers. You still have Marquez Valdes-Scantling on the practice squad, who Aaron Rodgers really likes, so I'm sure he'll make an impact at some point, but something to keep an eye out there. But let me know down below your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.